Hello and welcome back to Coffee Chats with Chett. So today I'm going to share my most recent blog with you, which is all about how to find meaning in your life. I would hear people talk about the importance of finding purpose in your life, and honestly, I found that to be pretty frustrating because I would think to myself, as these tiny specks of dust that we all are in this grand and forever expanding universe, how is it possible that we all have this unique purpose that we were all put on Earth to find? And secondly, if that was the case, I felt pretty frustrated because I had no idea what my purpose was. And so it wasn't until I read this book, which is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, that everything started to click a little bit more for me. And I also ended up reading The Pursuit of Meaning, which is a further deep dive into logotherapy, which is the therapy that Frankl invented. So I'll likely cover this in my next blog in part 2 of finding meaning in your life. So for this one, I'm going to pull out some teachings from this book. Before I dive in to pull out some of the lessons here, I wanted to share a little bit of context about the book in case you haven't read it before. So Frankl is essentially a psychiatrist, a neurologist, and a Holocaust survivor. And so while he was in concentration camps in the Second World War, he had a really unique perspective on not only how people treated one another, but how people responded to the way in which they were treated. And ultimately, he concludes that those who were able to survive in the concentration camps were ones that didn't let go of that innate freedom that they had within themselves and their innate ability to find hope and ultimately meaning in their lives, even while they were literally experiencing some of the worst things that have ever happened to humans in our history. From Frankl's experiences in the concentration camps, he essentially boils down finding meaning in people's lives into 3 distinct categories. And so I quote him here: the first is by creating a work, by doing a deed. The second is by experiencing something or encountering someone. In other words, meaning can be found not only in work, but also in love. The third avenue to meaning in life: even the helpless victim of a hopeless situation, facing a fate he cannot change, may rise above himself, may grow beyond himself. He may turn a personal tragedy into a triumph. And I synthesize this reading down into 4 distinct ways to find meaning in your life. This blog took me a little bit longer to write because I really wanted to make sure that the way that I synthesized and deciphered this text was not only just, accurate, but also really honored Frankl. And so this book isn't written in a linear way by any means. And so what I've done is synthesized and deduced what he shared in terms of the top 3 into 4 things that I think are really, really important and that we can take away and build on and instill in our lives. And so I think meaning can be reduced down to hand, heart, mind, and what underpins all of that is our ability to have hope. So the first one, hand. The best way to put this into perspective is by sharing another Frankl quote. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. I love this. I think it really helps to put into perspective that, like I said earlier, it's not about the world revolving around us as these tiny specks of dust that we all are. but rather in every given moment that we're in, every second, every minute, every day. How can we channel this sense of responsibleness in order to contribute in a way that brings our whole selves, that brings the best version of ourselves, that allows us to act in strong character and strong authenticity in order to make sure that we're showing up and contributing in a way that is purposeful and in a way that is absolutely meaningful. The second one is heart. And so Frankl shares that throughout his concentration camp experience, one way that he got out of the state of complete and total desolation is by having fond memories of his wife. And so at the time, he didn't know whether or not she was alive or dead, but by being able to retreat within himself and having these fond memories of her and finding that state of beauty and bliss was one way that he was able to get through the tough experiences that he was having. And it got him to a place where he got to this realization that through loving contemplation of the image that someone has of his beloved, they can, in fact, achieve fulfillment. And he went into detail about having these images alive within you of the people that you love so dearly, help people draw on the strength that they needed in order to endure the hard times that they were experiencing. And the third one is mind. So Frankl shares that the path of suffering is in and of itself the path to finding meaning in life. And to illustrate this, Frankl shares a story in which he had a doctor come up to him and shared that the doctor was feeling extreme suffering through depression because his wife had died 2 years ago. Frankl asked him the question, what would your wife be experiencing right now if she were the one to have lived and you were the one to have died? To which the doctor responded, it would be completely unimaginable. She would be suffering so much. Frankl replied, see, it is because you are here today that you have relieved her of that very suffering. That was an immediate click for the doctor, a complete perspective switch, to which the doctor didn't even respond to Frankl. He just went up to him and shook his hand. This perspective shift in terms of our own suffering and the meaning that it can provide in our own lives, to me is huge. It really is huge to be able to look at the trauma and the experiences that we've had and to find gifts in them can be in a very, very empowering way to live your life. And Frankl expressed that in terms of finding meaning in life, to bear witness to the uniquely human potential at its best, which is to transform a personal tragedy into a triumph, to turn one's predicament into a human achievement, is the path to finding meaning. Underpinning these three things was the importance of having hope. And there's an important distinction here. The distinction is having hope means this general deep sense within you that things one day will get better versus having blind optimism. And blind optimism, an example would be thinking that by a certain date, we would be able to be free and get out of the concentration camp. And this is evidenced by, unfortunately, the number of deaths that they saw increasing between Christmas 1944 and New Year's 1945, because so many of the prisoners had this blind optimism that they would get out of the concentration camps and be able to spend Christmas with their families, and this despair of this not happening literally led to these individuals getting ill, falling sick, and ultimately dying. And so Frankl talked about the importance of finding hope, finding that belief within you that things will get better, but making sure that it isn't attached to something that has some form of blind optimism associated with it. Now, this to me honestly feels like a heavier post. It's not every day that I talk about concentration camps and what happened in the war of World War II. But honestly, I think it's important. It's important for us to not forget our history, and it's important for us to learn from history. And if you are someone who is struggling with finding purpose and meaning in your life, what better teacher is there than someone like Viktor Frankl, who has literally lived through some of the worst things that have happened in our history, but yet was able to come out of that situation feeling like he had more meaning and purpose than ever before. And so I hope that you have been able to learn from this blog post, and I hope that you take some time to reflect and to think about some of the questions that I'm going to ask you right now, so that you can think about and internalize the ways in which you yourself can find meaning in your own life. So it's now time for your coaching questions of the week. So please bring out your writing tool of choice and let's get to work. So the first question here for you is, where do you find meaning in your life, whether it be through hand, heart, or mind? The second question here for you is what I continue to believe is so important, is what brings you hope? Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video. This is a passion project of mine. I love reading information, internalizing it, and helping other people grow by sharing it. And so if you found any value in the content that I shared today, please like this video and please subscribe to this channel. Also, I love feedback. And so if you have feedback for me, or a question or a comment, or want to share some of your own journaling and reflections with me, please leave a comment below. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next Monday.